I think there's more than just saying you don't want it. There was a practice, I don't know if it's still the same, of saying that you should only stay on Fosamax, for example, for a maximum number of years. And then you go off it.
Yeah, but the fall off from Fosamax is not as fast as it is with other. If you're on PTH, for example, and you stop it, then you have to have bisphosphonate given to you to prevent it. But what I'm talking about is that no one starts, right? I mean, they're just not there. Now, the reason that they talked about going off after 5 years was maybe that was contributing to this rare atypical fracture. Probably better for the patients to have stayed on it.
Or the osteoporosis of the jaw, is that also?
Very, very rare. One
Right, but that's
10,000.
also an issue of fear.
Yeah, but that's only with dental procedures.
Yeah.
So, I mean, these are real issues, but the risk benefit is crazy.
What about cost? Now that everybody has a higher deductible and with
Well, Fosamax, so the oral ones are very inexpensive.
they are.
I don't know what the cost of reclass is. Do you know, Mike?
I don't know what it's an IV, but Fosamax is less than $1 a week.
Yeah. No, expense is not the issue.
The copay is less than $5 for a month of 1 a week. I mean, I think
But in the age of direct advertising to customer, you open magazines and they have advertisements for cancer immunotherapies. Why is that? I mean, I don't think through any magazine you see direct to customer advertising about osteoporosis. Is that, how do companies decide what to pitch to?
Well, they got blasted saying that they were trying to tell about using it, and they were trying to sell drugs rather than being helpful. And there's a couple of Finnish endocrinologists, not endocrinologists, they were physicians, who wrote a series of articles that Mike and I shared with our mutual horror in the British Medical Journal, saying osteoporosis is a made-up disease. The only thing that happens is when you fall, it's bad. Otherwise, it's meant to sell drugs. It was very, very irresponsible.
That's the problem. I don't think people are aware of the magnitude of this problem.
That's right.
Because,
And that's,
they've reached 70 years old or 80 years old and they don't have a political. So the problem is, I don't think people are aware of the magnitude of the problem, and I think they assume the cost of the therapy.
they assume what that?
They assume the cost of the therapy is beyond their realm. And so what really has to get across, like as you say, it isn't expensive to take these, and like statins. If you're above a certain level or you have a certain cutoff point, you should automatically be put on these drugs.
And there's something to measure. Don't forget.
Yeah, you can measure it.
If you're a good boy or good girl, if you take your statin, your cholesterol will drop and you will get reward here. You don't get any reward from the bone merger, except the DEXA scan. And you haven't talked about the DEXA scan. And
I'll be happy.
Well, the T-score is
The T-score is based on the DEXA scan.
but how reliable really is it, John? What
I think it's very reliable.
you think it is?
It's at least as reliable as the cholesterol is in predicting
I
cardiovascular.
think so.
It is. That's what the
Well,
epidemiology.
But what has happened, the government has stopped reimbursing for it more and more and more. So it's the reimbursement is almost below the return on
I don't
investment.
think primary care physicians take it seriously.
They don't.
And orthopedists don't either.
Just comment, first of all, John, it's such a pleasure to hear you speaking on this, because I've been a student of John's, I'm still a student of John's, and I always learn something when he speaks. And so it's a very clear presentation that I think has really highlighted the issues. But I do think it in part begins with what you were saying, Pat. We understand, the lay public and primary care doctors understand what a heart attack is, how serious it is. And we could have a little byline when we don't have it, like osteoporosis is broken bones in nursing homes.
Something like that. That's a great point. Yeah.
Broken bones in nursing homes. That's what happens to you. if you have osteoporosis, and we haven't done that,
And then you have a treatable drug for this, it's not very expensive, and nobody takes it seriously. I know personally,
Yeah.
I've lost 3 inches in over a period of years and a couple of back surgeries. Injuries,
And you were so
etc.
tall to begin with.
I know, right. But it has terrible long-term consequences.
That was my
You gotta
message.
take it seriously
And when I began to prepare this, I hadn't realized the problem was as bad as it has become.
until you realize you have osteoporosis.
Well, yeah, I didn't have any trouble about what to do.
If you look at broken bones in nursing homes and you're an active 40-year-old man or woman who runs or swims or does yoga, that really is in your acceptance sphere. You don't think that you're vulnerable to this. Maybe you have a DEXA scan, you have a smart primary care doctor who says it's, between, less than 2.5, more than 1.6 or whatever. So you should take this. And you think, oh, I'm fine, I'll just drink more cafe lattes, I'll have more yogurt, I'll do more yoga, I'll do these things until you find out that swimming doesn't count to build up your bone density. And then you have a fracture, like a minor fracture. And I think for many of the women that I know in my cohort, which is late 50s to mid 60s, it's a small fracture of something that is their wake-up call that they, oh my goodness, how did I break this catching a touch football at Thanksgiving, or things like that. And then it's, my goodness, my back, my neck, my hip could be next. And I think that's the unfortunate. I think it takes something like that to get people motivated to take this medicine.
But how about this figure that only 3% of women who survive a hip fracture are treated? To prevent the second.
I think one of the biggest problems is competition on the bathroom sink for the medicine that elderly people are taking. There's a huge amount of medicine that never was dreamt of when we were kids growing up. I mean, you've got the cholesterol problem quite properly has taken center stage. So almost everybody's got one of those on a stack somewhere, even though it's also toxic in its own way. And then the gouty people are sitting on their allopurinol, so that's another one. Then most everybody's got high blood pressure, it shouldn't be so high, so they're taking one away. And by the time you're through, when somebody says, but what about your bones? There's no more room for people to take anything more. It's a real competition, not only for the pocketbook, but the number of pills that are those people. You can tell the Americans in the customs from the rattle of pills in their suitcase. It's a real problem. And this is a sneaky disease that doesn't declare itself until you break something.
But then is when you should move, as you were saying. And that doesn't happen even. That's what's so surprising.
But that's really what I think is the lethargy here.
Well, it's multifactorial, I think, yes.
So let me make an analogy to the management of diabetes too. In many providers now, healthcare systems, if you don't see your patient twice a year for diabetes 2, you get dinged. There's the system is designed to drive you. So it seems to me to be a very simple thing and cost efficient to say in primary care program. If you got a woman over a certain age or a man with a certain history, you must screen them for osteoporosis. The cost of the ultrasound is not that great to do it once.
Yeah.
And it seems to me it would probably even be cost beneficial in the long run.
I think it's a very good point. And particularly, the evidence is so overwhelming about a fragility fracture. People have a little collapse of their spinal body is a warning that you've got it,
Could I ask another question about how much an improvement of 4% or 6%, does that take somebody who's at a very high risk level and take them out of the high risk group, or is it, how does?
Well, as they say, the proof is in the pudding. The fracture reduction of 60% by being on it for a year or so tells you and that's very extreme. That's probably better, right? But I mean, if you take
Why is the compliance so bad with this
You see what I'm saying, Barbara? In other words, the
So at that 12-month point, the risk, the people who's on average have gone up, and it looks like it's very small, error bars, have gone up 5%. So they all of a sudden have a 40% drop.
in most
their
cases,
risk.
that'll take them up into, say, from minus 2.5 up to minus 1, 2 or something like that, which is pretty safe.
What's the,
It certainly decreases the risk that with a small fall, you will break
what's
the
the
bone.
negative aspect of bisphosphonates? Do they have side effects? Are they gastric effects? Why do people, why is the compliance so bad?
I don't think it was at the beginning, Mike. It's this
It
negative
was never
publicity.
seen in any of the clinical trials, but,
Huh.
so there were these rare fractures, atypical fractures. So part of what I think was unusual was that the side effect for the average physician was indistinguishable from what you were trying to prevent. Okay? You were getting fractures, supposedly, even that's not clear, but for the moment, there were fractures that were associated with the medicine, and you were supposed to be taking the medicine to prevent fractures. Now, the ratio of the garden variety to the very rare
It's 100 to 1.
100 to 1. But if you plot the prescriptions in the United States for these bisphosphonates, in 2006, ABC World News globally broadcast it was a slow news week, and for 3 nights in a row, broadcast these pictures of these fractures. And from that moment on, now, I think it's compounded, and I haven't been very popular at saying this, it's compounded by our profession,
Yes.
which was inexperienced in that it didn't respond immediately. So if you, talking about the statins, if you challenge the statins and their effectiveness at blocking heart attacks and strokes, American Heart Association, in a millisecond, they have on-the-shelf statements in every news outlet in the country or the world is going to get that as soon as you do that. John and I watched, I think in a very frustrating way, John, that it took almost 2 years.
Yes. Yeah,
There was a scholarly task force that was convened, and they analyzed it, and they almost forgot to say anything about benefit risk.
Yeah.
Right, John?
Exactly. That was the
So,
They became very curious about these atypical factors. They're very interesting, but they're a minor point. 1 to 100. It's crazy. So
now
many
we're
things
trying,
happen.
now we're trying to recover that ground, but valuable time is lost.
I have just one comment on compliance. It's once a week on an empty stomach.
Yeah.
So, that's hard. I mean, even smart people, once a week on an empty stomach, can I have my coffee?
Yeah, and
Can I
not
not
lying
have
down
my coffee?
afterwards.
And I can't go back to sleep after I take my medicine for 30 minutes. And then there's a change to the morning routine and you forget it that day, so can you take it that night? Why not? So what about having it be like birth control pills where you have placebos? And so you really only biologically need it once a week, but you're in the habit of taking it every single day. Then it goes in your medicine box and then you do that. Or what about reconfiguring it so that you take it every day and you get a little boost? But I think the once a week on an empty stomach is kind of hard. And
Yes,
that-
and compliance is a huge issue.
I think
And that's why the fracture liaison people are thinking about this IV treatment, which lasts for a whole year, as maybe one approach.
John, I have 2 questions, unrelated, but sort of related. One is, in terms of the athletic question that was raised, I'm not sure, if you're an aggressive athlete, does that prevent osteoporosis or not?
I would say no, depending on your age. But what you do know is that if you look at the bone density in the dominant arm of a tennis player or a baseball pitcher, it's much stronger than the other arm. But that's when you're young and youthful. I mean, you can't depend on exercise to keep you growing with strong bones when you turn 60.
No effect.
I don't think it does much.
So I don't think that this, what's out there is that in order to keep your bones strong, you do weight bearing, actually you must
Well,
walk.
that's good for you, period.
But
Just don't know
is
if
that
it grows as
true?
much as
That
you
it makes
like.
any difference, really? Is
I
it-
think it's cardiovascular conditioning and other things.
Yeah,
And it doesn't hurt the bones.
but do the bones need weight bearing?
Well, nobody's taken elderly people with bad osteoporosis and asked some of them to exercise hard, some not.
So there's no data really on that. And that's nothing, I've always been suspicious of that, but that's out there. That if you don't walk, you'll get osteoporosis.
And also, of course, they say take plenty of calcium, but that probably doesn't protect against.
And that's another big lie, is the calcium story. That hasn't helped. Because the calcium story is just a lot of bull. So is vitamin D. So everything that medicine is doing is a big lie. So the
I'll get that part out.
I don't want to be lied to, and I've been lied to. I have my own liver dermatologist. I went to the best dermatologist in the Harvard Medical School. He was a zany on vitamin D. He absolutely believed the story. And he would tell Gene, and he would tell me, and he would tell anybody who listened to him.
What was he telling you?
What?
What was he telling you?
You must take vitamin D or your bones will break.
But he was also telling me to take sunscreen so that he wouldn't
Yeah,
get
but
sick.
that was good. Yeah, that's right, so you wouldn't absorb it. But, we've been given so much propaganda that it's really very different.
This vitamin D story, by the way, to get off on that, it's a very tricky business. I mean, the Institute of Medicine decided that 20 nanograms per mil was enough. Many people in the field don't think that's the case. They think 30 would be better. And most places keep it at 30. And,
Barbara's expert, she says 20.
yeah, but I'm sort of expert too, I don't agree. I think it's 30.
There you go. Just the patience.
I have two other questions. I have my multi-part question. One is, if you're an astronaut, do you have the same osteoporosis, or is it a different kind of
Yes.
osteoporosis?
It's a very serious business. I can tell a late story. I didn't mean to offend Barbara, but I've been following her. When the Russians and the US used to cooperate a lot on space issues, it was known that astronauts lost a great deal of bond. And then the Russians said they'd solved the problem. They couldn't tell us what it was.
Come on.
I'm serious. And so,
The Russians solved the problem, we couldn't tell us what.
couldn't tell us, and they weren't allowed to tell us yet what it was. Okay, so there was a NASA delegation that went to Moscow, and they pulled me in as somebody who might get some of the facts out of them. And that's a very funny thing. A great trip, wonderful. KGB was all over the place spying on us. Our hosts were wonderful, and
Lots of vodka,
huh?
lots of vodka.
Yes, lots of vodka. Very good. But in the end, the head of the Russian Space Institute, we heard what the answer was. Their measurement technique at that time was so bad that he didn't know whether any of the measurements meant anything. That was the end of that. But at the meeting, the head of the space biology program in Russia said to me, "What's all this business about? You know, we have plenty of bone. What does it matter if you lose 30% of our bones?" I had to answer that, right? So that was a pretty tricky part. That was the only time I had an inspired second. So I said, well, the astronauts and the cosmonauts are the heroes of our nations, and they must not allow any part of their body to be weakened, even they love them.
You know, I might add just one dimension to this, because we've been very focused on the present, but these conditions that John has described and, you know, where the clinical practice is and how people view it, and that spills into how the regulators look at it. It's put a complete chill on new drug discovery in this area. John, I know, is very, both of us have been very concerned, but we think, you know, there are 2 drugs in the pipeline that will hopefully come out in the next year or 2. Those will probably be the last drugs we'll see in this field for at least 20 years.
Why is that, Michael? What is
Because they're
this?
so discouraged, there's no market.
Because the FDA has changed their,
No. Just that nobody's using them.
Who wants to enter a field like this
But
where
with the aging population, the number of people to treat must be going up a lot.
the doctor
Yes, but they're
can't
not-
tell
but
you
they're
what
not
the
being treated.
diagnosis is, how to make the diagnosis. The doctor can't tell you what goal to treat to. I think
But I
some
thought
of
the DEXA scan was such a great thing.
I'll let John answer, but there is an agreement on what goal to treat
Yeah.
to.
There
Like
there
you were
is
saying
not,
with
even though the
cholesterol.
DEXA scan you think is an accurate instrument. They-
Yeah, but I mean-
So what is your recommendation now? What should we do to treat?
Well, when I found out I had severe osteoporosis, I said, okay, I'm taking PTH and Prolia, even though they're not approved as a
But
combination.
wait a minute, you're now just dress up as a primary physician, or what? Where would you tell the patient to go and start to take pills and shots and all that stuff?
Or any fragility factor,
What?
any fragility factor. In other words, any fracture that
Okay.
occurs with minor trauma is a sign the skeleton is about to cause a whole lot. That's one.
So that's one. Suppose somebody is in your practice and you feel that you should be protecting your patients from that first fracture.
Or prevention. Well, that's where some of the arguments came, you know. In other words, to treat, if your spinal bone density is minus 2.5 at
Yeah.
any site, you
Then,
probably ought to be treated.
then you say treat.
Yeah.
Okay. So you believe that those little ladies in the DEXA lab are really accurate?
Yes, I think the accuracy is very good, don't you, Mike? And,
I do on a population basis. And the problem, I think, in our field is that people were perfectionists. They wanted it, well, if you have this bone density, you're gonna fracture. But that's not the way cholesterol works,
No.
and that's not the way
that's
sugar works, hemoglobin A1C. But for some reason, that's the thinking in our field, so people have kind of tarnished.
A number. And yet, you're right, that the cholesterol is all about is an interval. It's the concentration times time.
Yeah.
But the bone story is maybe when you reach a certain limit, your fracture risk goes up so high that you really should start treating.
Yeah.
You have to have a belief in that. If you really believe that that's true, then it's not just an artifact.
Have any studies been done looking not at the high-risk population of people who already have 20 medicines in their medicine cabinet, but at people 10 to 20 years before that, whose bone density is falling off, who might be more sympathetic to doing something to prevent the whole problem?
You know, that the age dependence of this process is very confusing. There have been papers saying you're doing too many bone densitometry studies, and if you do it once or twice and it's stable, you don't have to do it again. But I think that's out there. But the point is, there's a certain point in your age, other treatments you have, or suddenly there's a change in the way your body's reacting. So I don't think the DEXA scans are that expensive, and I think if you have a pattern that somebody's pretty good, they minus 1.3 or something like that, not to call it osteopenia is maybe overdone. But if you're up there, you're pretty good. And then you should be doing exercise and taking care of yourself and not jumping off tall buildings and so on. And if you start another treatment, if you have to have glucocorticoid for something, or every 5 years or something like that, you should probably check again. If all of a sudden the pattern starts going down, that's when you need to be worried.
But John, what I think needs to happen is the criteria for osteoporosis has to be ingrained in the primary care physician.
Yes.
So you say this is a breakpoint, this is when you should go on you should go on a treatment, this is the age at which you are at risk, and this is, if you have Parkinson's, or if you're on corticosteroids, or, I mean, they do this risk factor acceleration for cholesterol. So whether you should go on a statin or not on a statin. And the same criteria should be spelled out for osteoporosis. And it's simply ignored. I don't know of any primary care physician that's taken care of me that has said, you are at risk for.
Well, why hasn't the Endocrine Society,
Yeah.
as former president, why hasn't the Endocrine Society come up with a practice guideline that, that specifically speaks to this point?
Well, I think that's what the American Society of Bone and Mineral Research and the Endocrine Society should develop position papers on this. One thing that's happened, I think, if we could get people with fragility fractures who are seen in the hospital by these fracture liaison services to be treated. Let's say they got a dose of cylindronate that would act for a year. If that started to happen, medicine is a little, we're not always rational. Seeing something beginning to happen with people, we need a little push on that.
Yeah.
And I have a pull
How
for
do
it.
the orthopedists feel about this?
They
They don't ignore it. They don't pay attention.
they don't even think about it.
Because they would be,
That's where the fracture liaison services are concentrated. When you ask the orthopedist, maybe this would be a good idea, I say, sure. They just hadn't thought of it, they were too busy. But they're responding pretty
Maybe the
well.
pharma group should enable them in some way, somehow get them.
What about women? There are plenty of women organizations. Why?
It should be part of women's health, there's no question.
I couldn't agree more, and the fact of the matter is, the data, it's gonna come from the primary care physicians at the very least, at the very beginning. Women of a certain age, you have your mammogram, appointment, and they will make you a bone density appointment at the same time. And all that information flows to your primary care physician. I mean, and with the boomer generation reaching, everybody's so type A and really interested in handling their own, taking a role in their medical care. I can tell you all my women peers, colleagues, friends, family, they have their bone density
They're
done.
managing their
They
own.
need,
Yeah.
well, but it's between them and their physician. So there are some docs that are doing the right thing.
But they're not getting any guidance from the primary care.
No, that's where they get it. So all of that information flows to their primary care
But
physician.
they're not getting any guidance from it.
Well, so how do they know to go on Fosamax or any of these
Because
things?
some primary care doctors
Yeah.
at the MGH
Mhm.
are very proactive
Right,
about
and at the
this.
Brigham, which is where my care is as well. So I think, Dr. Potts, I think all of these things are great suggestions. And I think you have to just mobilize, I can't imagine one woman who would not want to, prevent this type of disease, for goodness sakes. So it's really up to the medical community, and the idea of women's groups, you get out there and you tell it,
You're right.
oh my gosh.
The cause is multifaceted and the solution is a little bit confusing. This third one here, making the first fracture the last fracture, that was a task force report. You were asking me to do it, but it didn't get disseminated enough perhaps, right?
2012.
Well, I hate to bring up the
Yes,
question.
yes.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, Dr. Potts.
So I was gonna say, I hate to bring up the question of litigation and malpractice, but I have a two-part question. Was there a significant amount of litigation related to the rare tumors?
The rare fractures, you mean?
The rare fractures, rather, yeah. And did that have any effect on it?
I don't think so.
Okay,
I don't believe
A
so.
lot of publicity.
A lot of publicity.
okay. And then you would think, for example, for cancer, failure to diagnose and treat is a major part of malpractice. So has anyone ever brought a suit against someone for failure to anticipate and treat for
But Jeff, I can tell you the pictures of people who
Yeah.
osteolysis
Yeah.
with this is so dramatic that it has an enormous negative effect on people taking this as a prophylactic.
But look, one per
Maybe one
10,000.
in 10,000.
One per 10,000.
I wonder if the
Maybe
internet,
one in 10,000, but it's so dramatic.
I wonder if the internet,
I
internet has really played a role here because it's so easy now to get
Yeah.
these images
And it's,
to millions of
wow, I'm
people.
gonna go on that.
Yeah, very dramatic.
So usually that's where the problem is.
Yeah, I think
It's the rare toxicity.
exactly.
But the statin story,
toxicity there?
there's
Yeah.
much.
Yeah,
there's
there's
much. I mean, it's you and this, that, and the other. And it probably doesn't have terrible pictures. Terrible jaws that are smashed out, have huge holes in them, are very dramatic.
As opposed to something
Statin
that's weak.
story is has got a picture, so it's
Muscle aches.
somebody
Muscle
who can't
pain.
walk.
General feelings of malaise.
But the muscle pain is shifting to another statin takes care of at least half of it. And the other half of it, nobody's sure what the muscle pain is all about.
No, but Nick can tell you.
Yeah, Nick knows that it's real.
Do you want a statin? Is that personal experience? Oh, really? Okay. Rhabdomyolysis or? Yeah, okay.
So, John, you had once mentioned that when you started out, there was no, there wasn't no calcium, there was something else in the, is there an elasticity component to the whole thing, or is it all just mineral?
We are just beginning to understand the sort of material properties and strength of bone. There are other techniques like vertebral fracture assessment, and there's a finite element analysis. And you can do that with DEXA. You can get a sense that two people with the same DEXA bone mass, one has a much weaker structure than the other and is more at risk.
I could sort of see some sort of rubbery structure inside that would protect your bone even after less calcium. Or, I mean, the matrix, it's not just all calcium.
Yeah, I think in other words, these trabeculae that are interconnected. The interesting thing is these treatments build them back up. Nobody thought that when all those trabeculae were gone, if you use something like PTH, that they would reassert, all the interconnections would happen. They do. It's, I don't know the answer, and I've got good responses here. I think an effort to get the message out is one. Fracture Liaison Service is getting orthopedists to pay attention to it, which they will if they're, and then public education to understand risk benefit. People don't understand risk benefit well. I mean, I think that's the problem.
John,
John, do you think a wrist X-ray every 5 years would give value?
Wrist X-ray.
easier than a.
It's better than a hip, I think. I mean, it's easier than a hip.
Well, you can do, you mean DEXA or just plain, hey, X-rays are not very good for telling quantitative things about bone.
I mean, with DEXA. With DEXA, the wrist is easier to do, easier to follow.
Yeah, I mean, for example, many people have degenerative spine disease. And so you need, CT scans to get a good look at the inner part of the bone. I think DEXA is pretty good as a screen in general.
What, wrist?
No, I mean in general, you get forearm, a little bit further up. You get forearm, hip, and if your vertebral bodies are allowed, then you get that.
So to do that, you have to lie down.
Yeah,
You have to have the whole scan.
but it's pretty
It's an
great.
arbite, that scan.
You think so? I
Yeah,
don't like it.
sure, anything's an arbite. Anything that makes you go into a system
All right.
is hated. Because the medical care system is so cumbersome. I mean, you got all, believe me, as a big user, it's really, if you add anything on, it's really something.
Well, maybe the point to make is that where this effort should focus, Mike, is fragility fracture. If you have one, get treated. Maybe that's the signal we should emphasize.
And another question, I read somewhere at some point that carbonated beverages, especially the artificial sweetener ones, but probably any carbonated beverages, will interfere with bone reabsorption. And if that's the case, can you put on the cans, caution, just like they do on bottles of liquor, caution, this ingredient.
Is that true?
I don't know, that's my first question.
What are these guys?
Well, in the adolescence, there was at some point, there were several studies, and I don't know who did them, and they were a few years ago, saying that increased consumption of carbonated beverages sometimes, how like Catherine, she went to Brown, she was
Oh,
at,
yeah, is that, yeah, so is that,
Yeah.
are the experts here? Is that, am I drinking too many carbonated drinks?
No, and I'm trying to
That's just
figure out
beer to me, or it's okay.
exposure, but I'm just asking if that's true,
Acid?
then is there any way to consider that that's a risk factor and make the public aware?
I haven't seen the data, I can't have an
Well, then
opinion, but I
maybe,
mean, I think it's.
if you're, maybe the data's not there, but
I don't know.
that there were studies mentioning that. Do you know, Joe?
Yeah, I think, she was in our division when she did that
Right.
study. I don't know the primary data, but that was the conclusion. I think some people think it's the acidosis, because these are carbonated.
It's the what?
It's the, that the bicarbonate that's in it, that somehow it changes the pH, and that, in an acid environment, bone is more resorbable.
These are young people too.
These are young, yeah, these are, I don't know.
And and they're taking carbonated beverages rather than taking alcohol, so.
what's the danger trade-off?
So
It strikes me that we could go much deeper ultimately, understanding the clinical concept. I'm wondering what you think about the application of new tools like whole genome sequencing. They take a population of people who are 70 with no fractures, 70 with a lot of fractures, and look for predisposing genes. Because when you think about the state of the field and understanding, it's really not molecular right now. But there's a lot going on in that area.
There is a lot, coming up with interesting risk factors, genetic risk factors across the equation. But it doesn't come out, and you say, well, get this, get your genetic profile, it'll tell you whether it's across the equation. It's not that.
But I was thinking of it as a source of new drug targets.
Ah. Well, you see, Mike's point is, here are drugs that work, and the pharmaceutical companies are saying, well, nobody wants to use them, so why make it? One of the great sadnesses, Mike, you want to talk about the tragedy of ladanacatinib? I say the tragedy of ladanacatinib. I thought it was a great drug, and it was going to be easy to take it by mouth.
Right. Well, it's certainly in many ways, I feel it as a personal tragedy. So the story that John's alluding to is that there was great hopes that last summer a new oral osteoporosis drug would appear that didn't have the side effects of the current drugs. And it was the product of a 22-year research project at Merck with a real molecular insight based on the deficiency of an enzyme called cathepsin K, which led to stronger bones. And if you could therefore inhibit that enzyme with a medicine, you might get stronger bones. So clinical trial which Jeff, we were talking earlier about what's the contribution of academia and the contribution of industry. So we did a clinical trial that involved 16,000 patients for 5 years in 40 countries. The clinical trial cost $500 million. The drug was as potent as anything we have ever seen. Oral once a week. You can't have it. And the reason that you can't have it is that there was a signal, a statistically significant side effect, more in the treated arm than the control arm of stroke. Small, but statistically significant. Not related to the mechanism of action of the drug as far as we can tell. And so we don't know if it's the play of chance or it's real, and you would never be able to tell a patient one way or another. And nobody had an appetite to do another clinical trial at that scale, which would end after the patent had expired. And so it's over. We'll never. John was advising us on that drug as it was making its way through, but
It's wonderful, it's over. And
So
it should be a running hypothesis.
very clearly.
and it's 60% of vertebral fractures. And unlike anything else that was available, most of the drugs that John has spoken about, they level off after about 3 years. They don't continue to have a positive impact. They're still effective at preventing further loss. And some of the drugs, like parathyroid hormone that John talked about, you can only take for about 2 years.
Yeah.
But this drug kept going and going. We had people on it for 7 years. And every year they got more bone.
Are they thrombotic or hemorrhagic?
What kind of stroke?
They were, well, there was an increase of both, and I can't remember which one was.
And how much of an increase? Like
Just above statistical significance, more than 0.05.
But like 1.1%. I mean, there's statistical significance, there's clinical significance. But
Well,
Was that corrected for the people who didn't die of their fractures? Or
that is one of the problems in the design of the study that you just pointed to, which was a terrible design flaw.
Yeah, it was bad.
Which was that in the placebo group, so these were people who were not, this is probably more detailed than you need or what, but the people who weren't treated with drug had their bone mineral density going down, down, down. The people who were getting treatment were going up, up, up. Because it was unethical to allow people to continue to lose bone when there were no known treatments, when you hit a certain point, you were taken out of the study and put on medicine. So the sickest people were removed from the trial, and those were the people who probably had more stroke and probably more of them died, but they were lost to follow.
Was it being compared to Fosamax or not?
It was not compared to Fosamax, because you just couldn't do a trial that big.
Yeah, right.
It was compared historically to Fosamax, and historically it was better than Fosamax.
And was it viewed that it was not, FDA would not approve it, or you just didn't want to take the risk of what would have to be done there?
I was involved in the decision, and we couldn't imagine that a doctor would sit with a patient and say, I've got a drug that's better than anything else around for your fractures. But although I don't necessarily believe it, the clinical trial shows you increase your chance of stroke. And what is the last thing anybody at this table wants? It was over.
Were they treated with high-dose aspirin or anything like that?
The people in the study, everybody, this is another, sometime I might talk about this. This is another, when you do these clinical trials around the world, everybody is on different things. Some people are smoking, some people are drinking a lot of alcohol, some people are taking aspirin, and you just hope that the large numbers will randomize that out.
But it's a tragedy that it takes $500 million to come to a non-interpretable endpoint.
It is such a good drug. Yeah, and John and I know people who devoted the 20 best years of their career to this thing as well. So that's the other. We tend not to think about industry scientists.
Given how well it worked, was it too big a trial that uncovered that very small risk that might not have been discerned if it was a small trial? I mean, it's so effective. It's such an effective drug.
It's so complicated, Joe. What happened was that, and I learned some things from it too. It was so effective
But
that the data.
To me, the basic problem comes down to why do you abandon a drug like that? You know it's good, you know the study has been flawed, and yet it's lost to society. Why does Merck and why do pharmaceutical companies abandon a drug that they know is effective?
Because no, it's because I couldn't look the medical community in the eye and say, I don't believe that these strokes are real. I have no basis on data, based on data, to know whether they're real or not real.
Yeah, but it comes down to a flawed design. And if the design is flawed, it's going off patent, so what? If it's a good drug and you believe in it, why does the pharmaceutical company abandon it? I don't see the moral.
If, Pat, I think your point would be very powerful if there were no drug available in the osteoporosis field. Let's say we have millions of people who need treatment. This drug is flawed. Let's inform people about the risks, the benefit and the risk. But it isn't that kind of field. It's a field with 3 or 4 drugs. And to answer Joe's question, what happened was that the drug was so effective at 3 years that the data monitoring committee said, it's so effective, we want you to stop the trial based on efficacy. Sounded great, champagne bottles opening. But they said at the same time, something quite impossible, we'd like you to continue the study.
With side effects.
Because there's some side effect, which of course they wouldn't divulge. And we made, I think, a terrible mistake in that we listened to the committee.
Yeah.
And what we should have said, well, that's very nice, we're glad to know that it works, but we're not changing this study at all. Unless you tell us to stop the whole thing.
Yeah.
We're not. So what happened was, when we made that announcement, half the patients left the trial. Because they said, it works, we've done our bit.
Yeah.
But based on the best, analysis that you could have done or did, if you were to take, 1,000 patients and say, how many people under the, various analytical schemes, how many people would be saved from a major fracture, and how many of that same group might get a stroke? What's the order of magnitude?
Well, many more fractures saves than strokes.
Right, but by 100 to 1.
Yeah, 100 to 1, but, again, stroke is a stroke. It's not a fracture.
But Mike, is it because this drug is going off patent?
No, it had 15 years of patent.
Are there any countries that do manage osteoporosis and prevent it well? I mean, better than the US? In your travels, John, have you been to countries that manage osteoporosis, prevent it, screen, treat better than the USA? And what are the models out there of countries that are watching out for this for their patients?
I would say, Michael, we probably are doing about as well as anybody, right? In Britain, they don't want to, they won't let you treat unless you've had a fracture.
Nice.
Asia, I don't know much about it. Mike, do you have any views about that? I think we're doing pretty well. We're doing bad. I mean, I don't know anybody who's doing better.
I think there are some countries that have a national health system. So they really wind up with financial burden. So it's not a lot of people in the world, but probably Scandinavia and Israel do a better job. But they take care of people for a lifetime.
John, there's some data that vibration tables, getting back to this issue of physical exercise, can increase bone mass, at least in animals, and I think maybe some data in humans, I'm not sure. And it might work through the sclerostin system and the wave signaling. Is that a potential therapeutic approach that should be thought of?
Well, I mean, we know, as I was saying, that intense exercise can cause new bone formation in a way that was never expected. It's very dramatic. Now, somebody would say if this anti-sclerostin monoclonal antibody, which it has a little trouble because it's given every 3 months, it's not good. It's valproic acid, which is 1 year. But somebody would say, why sit on vibrating? People can take that. I mean, that's the problem.
John, it seems to me that they had studied the cause of the stroke. Was it hypercoagulability? Was there something going on that could be reversed? Because we can do a lot right now preventing ischemic stroke.
Well, I mean, Mike was guiding this drug along. I think it's a tragedy that it was lost. Because I think the stroke issue is probably false. But they have to tell patients that this is a possibility. I mean, for example, in my case, if you've had radiation to your bone, you did have, you're not, it's a risk to make PTH. Well, You know, come on, tell me. I mean, I didn't even think about it, it's nonsense. The ratio of benefit to risk is enormously positive, so. But many patients, if the drug had been available, many patients might have said, I'm gonna take it. But Mike's pointing out that there are other drugs in it, so that makes it more difficult.
If there really were both hemorrhagic and thrombotic strokes, then I'm sure that you're right that it's unrelated, because those are two very different mechanisms, or two very different paths towards stroke. And they couldn't have a common mechanism caused by that drug, was my
I think it was the kicking out of the study, the sickest people on the
Yeah,
street.
that's what makes it, that's what's wrong with it.
So that seems to be such a tragedy.
Yes.
And
It is.
is there no mechanism within either pharmaceutical corporation thinking or within the FDA to go back and look at something like that and accept it? And
Yes, exactly.
I mean, what a tragedy to lose
Yeah.
a valuable drug.
You know, once you have that data, Barbara, you have that. And the only way to negate that data is to design some kind of trial that you feel would be more convincing. And so you could do, let's say, a trial in people who are at high risk of stroke, right? Say, I'm going to give you this drug and let's find out if it really. But who's going to enter that trial? If you have decaf.
Like, why does the trial have so many patients? Seems like it was powered for a tremendous, given what John just spoke about.
Yeah, it was given so much power because the drugs that John was speaking about were developed much earlier in time. And so it was possible to go into people with very severe osteoporosis. And as John showed you, if you had that first fracture, you were at very high risk for the next fracture and the third fracture. So those first trials could be done with many fewer patients by going into those people who either had a fracture or were at very high risk. And if you were going as we did in 2009, 2010, it would be unethical to not have those people treated. So we were left with a group that had less severe osteoporosis, so they had fewer fractures. So to accumulate the comparative signal, you had to expand the treatment base.
So this would be the T minus 1.5.
Yeah, it was T minus 2 kind of. Yeah.
So why are they allowed to drop out of
They were forced to be dropped out of the trial. That was
I don't understand.
because the condition of doing the trial, and I agreed with this, the Human Studies Committees, the IRB's Studies Committee said, look, if somebody's bone mineral density falls below a certain amount, we now know that they're at risk for fracture, and we have drugs to treat them. And it's unethical to leave those people
But why not,
untreated.
oh, I see, why not treat them with the new drug?
Well, at the time you're doing the trial, you don't know that the new drug's good.
That's the whole point of the trial. It's against standard of care.
Yeah, it's against standard of care.
So this is a recurrent problem, it would seem, with drug trials.
Yes.
Is there a way out of it? I mean, it can be agreed upon by ethical committees and the FDA and make sense for pharmaceutical companies?
I think there are new models. So there's two sets of things. One is, could you think of a scientific way to get around this problem? I think there's a scientific way you could modify it. But then there's also the issue that every field is in competition with every other field for discovering a new drug. So if you're going to be working on osteoporosis, there's an opportunity cost that you're not working on cancer.
If they're running
If you're running-
super company.
Yeah, if you're in a company. And so you're gonna say, well, why am I beating my head against the wall on this when I could increase my probability of success by trying to find a cancer drug? So there are a lot of factors.
Any thoughts that Merck would pass it on to some other company that has a different risk profile, what they're going to look at? I mean, because there's a lot for this drug. And it may even be a blockbuster if it was properly studied.
You know, we thought of that, Jeff. Right along, we came to the conclusion that no company would take a drug and try to commercialize it. The whole world knew that Merck rejected it for safety reasons. That trying to bring that drug to clinical practice just
But even with some additional studies to address, that would just be too expensive for any other
clinical
country.
trial. If you
Yeah.
have strokes in 2 or 3 out of 1,000 people, you're going to do a gigantic study. You might just prove that it does cost more.
But the 2 or 3 out of 1,000, that would be like a fold increase over the risk going into it, or just a marginal? I mean,
No, it's a
because
lot-
risk benefit is really the whole bottom line of all of this. Nothing is without risk. So how do you think about the risk benefit, apart from how the FDA might approve it, or how?
Well, I'm sure that the FDA would not.
Yeah.
100%
Yeah.
sure the FDA would not.
You know, all these drugs have had some bad events and survive. For example, when PTH was introduced, it caused osteosarcoma in cancer-prone fat strain called the fishes. We thought it was finished. Then they saw the efficacy, and they realized that the toxicology was a very special case. Police had to spend money following, and it's a very rare event, osteosarcoma in people without underlying risk factors. And it looks as though it doesn't happen. But each of these things, what do they say? All drugs have a near-death experience, and this one had a fatal one. Yeah.
John, you might say more about that, I think, because that's an example where the field really recognized the value and discounted this side effect, kind of the opposite of what you
And the fortunate thing was this was early. This was the first and only anabolic bone-building agent, and that had a lot of appeal to people. There's another one coming along that seems to work even better and more effectively, a PTH analog, and it may be given by a patch. And then, you know, the other goal in this, somebody mentioned Mark Ryan.
Yeah.
You know, he's looking downstream. What is it that these things do in the cell? And could you find the next target? So the sad thing is that this is a field that could have gotten better and better for patients if we had people actually using them. I mean, but because people are not using them, it's really put a small with the further drug development. It's really most unfortunate. So maybe this fracture liaison approach, I'm going to hear more about it tomorrow from you. But maybe we can get orthopedics to respond to people who have fractures.
Can you
And a lot of
imagine
people
trying
start
to
being,
Can you imagine trying to get aspirin into the market,
Wow.
corticosteroids, or
With all
estrogen,
their
or
side effects.
anti-estrogen? Never, because we are now so focused on the 1 in 1,000 side effects that we don't see the risk
that's a
benefit.
public education issue. That's what
Some of it, though, is the chronicity of the
I think it's
medication.
a tragedy.
Some of it, Pat, is the chronicity of the medication. The anti-obesity drug, it's very hard to get a new one on the market because you're going to take it for years. Osteoporosis, the same thing. Cancer, not so much. Glucocorticoids, perhaps not so much, because you may not take them forever. But like a drug like this, you might
Well,
take.
unless you have the cortical syndrome.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank John and for it's really either in the table and also Mike and support to give us the full picture of the state of osteoporosis and its treatment.
Thank you, and I want to thank you for introducing with your wonderful assistant here, the first recording. Yeah.
Yes, we'll be delighted to have it up there on the internet. Thank you very much.
Thank you.